Even though it felt like I was trapped in a 1940s melodrama starring Victor Mature and Loretta Young, I kept on with her, vowing every night that I'd tell her the next morning how I really felt. But by then I'd lost my resolve and had to accumulate a new batch of resolve in the face of the accumulated evidence of that day. Sudden mood swings, hysterical laughter one moment and tears the next. Oh, I remembered what it had been like dating less volatile women before I met Natasha. I must confess I found them predictable and a bit boring, though surely more comforting than any time I spent with my Russian doll. Meanwhile, the offers kept pouring in for acting work, but most of them were absurdly inappropriate. I was offered roles that more prominent actors had already rejected, in vehicles that seemed doomed from the outset. Lex Luthor in Superman 15, Willie Loman in a hip-hop version of Death of a Salesman. Someone who should have known better wanted me to play Helen Keller's father in a sentimental Hallmark family special. Well, I felt a kinship with Nicolas Cage and Liam Neeson, who seemed to lack the gumption to say no to a doomed project. To each of these, I instructed my handlers to issue a polite yet firm "Thanks, but not today. Please keep me in mind, though." I didn't want to risk burning any bridges at this stage in my career, but I hoped that someone in a position of power would finally be able to see the real me and the real scope of my talent before senility sets in. If any of this was an indication of what I could expect from my showbiz career, well, I might want to go back to faux furnace repair. I began to wonder if Natasha and I would have an easier time holding our marriage together if only we shared a mutual career. Maybe I could get a TV series launched for the two of us. Surely some of the tried and true TV formulas of the past would work for us. Maybe a modern update of the Billy Jack movies of the 70s. Righteous hippie couple fights the squares. Combine that with cute young cops, sarcastic medical students, and a few cute kids or pets, and someone with a longer attention span than mine could create a recipe for a long-running hit that would bond Natasha and I together as well as give us plenty of cash. Didn't I owe us one last wholehearted shot at marital and financial success? I remembered a terrible summer replacement series starring Peggy Cass and Dick Van Heusen as parents of a family of diaper-clad chimpanzees. Well, it turned out it wasn't up to me. I guess I shouldn't be surprised my former captors had a scheme in mind that was far beyond my ability to imagine the many twists and turns. When Kim Jong-un came to our front door, well, I figured he was an impersonator, and this had to be some sort of Hollywood prank, sort of like having Elvis sing you happy birthday or finding Marilyn Monroe in your bed. But no, it really was the infamous North Korean dictator, and he really was there to see me. Through his translator, he told me that Dennis Rodman had recommended me for a feature-length film about a karaoke singing volleyball star team who take the gold at the Olympics while becoming international entertainment sensations. And I would play the promoter who never loses faith in them no matter what obstacles cross their path, including a preemptive nuclear strike by the United States, whose women's volleyball team failed to qualify for the finals. Well, I told him the concept sounded original and interesting, but I'd have to check my schedule. Finally, there was a bidding war. Various firms were offering me larger and larger amounts of money not to sign with another firm. This was called an exclusive option on my services, though the exact nature of those services was left up in the air. They were simply bidding for me to sign with them and no one else. My agent assured me that in most cases nothing real ever comes from these, but the money would prove real and substantial. So finally, I had discovered a legitimate way to provide no real service or benefit to anyone and still handsomely be rewarded for my lack of effort. The capitalist dream. Having stumbled upon it, you might think I'd be finally content, but instead I was growing more dissatisfied by the minute. How dare these people patronize me this way? Didn't I have a newly reclaimed sense of high self-esteem bordering on pride? Well, if not proud, I was certainly lonely. I missed the personal touch, the one-on-one contact I enjoyed back when I was swindling old ladies in their living rooms. Now money came to me anonymously through the machinations of my agent and the largesse of creative directors at entertainment studios. I didn't feel like any of it had anything to do with me. Well, money makes some things easier. Problems disappear in the face of ample funds. Of course, there are numerous opportunities to use money to manufacture new problems, and I seem especially adept at that process. It's another one of my many counterproductive talents. The move to Peru, Indiana was uneventful. Since I owned almost nothing, I was able to make that trip with just one extra suitcase. Natasha said she'd come later, that she had something to take care of, but I knew in my heart she wouldn't be joining me, which was just fine. Her duplicity saved me from having to summon the spine to tell her I wanted to be free. So I decided to start a school, an entrepreneurial academy to teach leadership. Yeah, leadership. That was the hot thing. That and passion with a capital P. Everyone was gaga over leadership and passion. And I wasn't about to stand by and let others take the credit and the lion's share of the booty. Creativity was also quite a sexy concept at the time, and I promised to unblock and unleash creativity in every student. After all, I was a certified success, wasn't I? Surely there was an easy and direct path for someone of my stature to help others achieve even a modicum of what I had. Well, Peru, Indiana turned out to be the perfect place to establish such an academy. I could lease an enormous commercial building for almost nothing, as half of the downtown had been abandoned once Walmart established itself on the edge of town. I settled on an old Elks Club. The furnishings that had been left behind were, massive, grandiose, free for the taking. These lent an air of legitimacy to my latest whim. And hiring faculty, well, that was no problem either. Over the years, I'd surrounded myself with a plethora of overeducated and underemployed people. Men and women who'd last showed promise so long ago no one could quite recall what those promises were. But now they sent their resumes in. Braggarts, dullards, nincompoops, posers. No matter, today they'd be more than willing to work for slightly above minimum wage just to have a private office with their name on the door, preceded by the title professor. There is no scam like education. For the marks, line up and take out loans just to participate. You assign readings, and then after a suitable amount of discussion, you test them on the readings. You don't even have to write these assigned readings. In fact, it's better if you don't. That way you risk nothing. In fact, education is the only scam where the mark continues to credit and thank his tormentor long after he should have realized he'd been taken for a ride. As my celebrity status increased, the fortunes of my academy soared. There was interest in me giving a TED Talk. I demurred, citing a busy schedule. I encouraged my staff to organize symposia, and they did, charging outlandish fees for other no-talents to come and give talks about their derivative research to an equally mediocre audience. But then I went a bit too far. I decided it was time to bring in some heavyweights. When I invited Henry Kissinger to receive an honorary doctorate in leadership, I knew I was treading on thin ice. This could easily blow up in my face, but the temptation was simply too strong to resist. After all, hadn't he received the Nobel Peace Prize after bombing Laos back into the Stone Age? What could be so wrong about receiving an honorary doctorate from a diploma mill like mine? Well, it turns out the CIA had their own opinion about my offer. Suddenly, our little campus was crawling with creeps, athletic young men and women who looked like they'd already endured plenty of special training, and I'm not talking about poetry class. Finally, they confronted me in my office. They determined with substantial evidence that my academy was a fraud, a diploma mill, my faculty a bunch of dullards, and that nothing of value was being taught or learned. And your point is? I countered. 'Twas a brilliant day in early autumn. The maple trees in the front lawn were aflame. Little did I realize that the main building in our new annex would soon be aflame as well, and that although no one lost their life in this mysterious blaze, the institution I'd founded only months before would soon be no more than a hazy memory, an incomplete transcript. Thank God I had the foresight to include no refunds in the terms and conditions for admission. I owe the lawyer who suggested that golden tidbit a lot. Maybe I'll award him an honorary doctorate someday. Well, I thought maybe this would be an excellent time to take the North Korean dictator up on his generous offer, but by then he'd changed his mind and was more impressed with persuading Justin Bieber to become his new Minister of Culture. So I was back to square one. For someone who had just been wiped out, I was remarkably at ease, for I had not owned much of what I had lost. In fact, I'm not sure with a little digging I could find some sort of government handout for business owners who'd suffered catastrophic fires. Even an interest-free loan might suffice. No. I wasn't sitting in a hot seat. But I was straddling a fence, as I had no idea what to do next. All I knew for sure was the discomfort of fence sitting. Thought briefly about starting a religion, but then surmised that'd be too much like my recent foray into higher education. Taking advantage of the irrational beliefs of others is child's play. Surely someone as clever as I could come up with a scam more novel, one that required more original thought and would be a bit harder to decipher. And that's when I came up with the psychic bypass. As long as I didn't make the mistake of predicting exactly where on the heart these new arteries would grow, or when, there was indisputable evidence that one could increase blood flow to a damaged heart muscle simply by staying alive long enough for it to happen. Yeah, survival could be ensured by taking conventional medications to control blood pressure and inhibit coagulation. But who could seriously dispute the fact that attitude and prudent exercise couldn't share the credit for a new blood supply? The burden of proof lay on the scoffer. The trick of making claims while not legally making them has been well studied already. What with tens of millions of baby boomers reaching heart attack age, psychic bypass was a guaranteed winner. But then after I'd lined up scores of interviews on health and fitness shows and had what seemed to be real interest on a segment of the Lifetime cable channel, and Facebook and Twitter were ready to go viral with an explosion of psychic bypass likes, shares, tweets, when it came time to launch, I did what I always did. I got bored. Found myself asking, do I really want to spend these last chapters of my life fooling others into wasting their dwindling hours? No. Surely there's something more fun to be done. What I would really enjoy is out there someplace, just over the next horizon, and all I have to do is wait a bit longer for it to rise. Contemplation, patience, these reared their awful heads and demanded my attention. Before they had their way with me during the 40 to 45 seconds I dared examine my heretofore unexamined life, I thought I wouldn't be able to draw another breath. Nausea came in waves, but as those waves left, the certainty arrived that yes, I would survive. I am me, damn it, and that just has to be good enough. Sure, I'm a sociopath of sorts. What of it? I'm not alone. Many whom we grant positions of prominence share my proclivity.